Hey guys, Break here, and today we're going to be ranking the professions in Battle for Azeroth, talking about which professions will make you the best gold towards the end of the expansion, which is the period we are currently in. Now, I've already done individual videos on each profession, so you can check those out for more detailed guides. This is not going to be a detailed profession guide, it's going to be more of a ranking and talking about the best and worst things about each profession. And remember, these are just my opinions on my servers. On your servers it could be different, but this is just from what I have found. And as always, we won't be talking about cooking or the gathering professions. This is just the crafting professions, starting at number 8 and going up to the best one. And at number 8 we have Jewelcrafting. Now, I haven't been happy with Jewelcrafting for a couple of expansions, mostly because they made it so easy to craft the gems. Anyone can now do it, and the gems basically make you no gold, which is a real shame. There also isn't much gear that actually has gems, and I know that's changing in Shadowlands, but this is a BFA gold guide, and that's why Jewelcrafting isn't the best. Now, Jewelcrafting does have some positives, in particular the Uncanny Staff, particularly if you have rank 3, can sell for a pretty decent amount of gold, and it sells very quickly. Lots of people want to buy weapons. And then of course there is prospecting, which in my Jewelcrafting video I showed you guys that it can be very profitable to do prospecting depending on your server and depending on the prices. But if you can get cheap ore, then prospecting could be a really good money maker for you. But unfortunately those two things are basically it for Jewelcrafting gold making. Even the old world Jewelcrafting stuff isn't great compared to some of the other professions, and realistically, it is not the best profession for the end of Battle for Azeroth. It looks like in Shadowlands it's going to be really good. They're adding lots of cool new things. But for now, I'm going to have to mark Jewelcrafting as the current worst crafting profession. Next up on the list, which is a big surprise for some people, particularly because it's usually one of my favourite professions, but it is Alchemy. I really do not think Alchemy is the best profession at the moment. In fact, I think it's really bad, particularly with the tools of the trade, which has basically made all of Alchemy worthless unless you have the correct tools of the trade buff up, as I spoke about in my dedicated Alchemy video. Pretty much all the flasks and potions make absolutely no gold unless you have the Silas proc from the tools of the trade, and even if you have that, they still make hardly any gold, at least on my server. I know some people might be making gold from Alchemy, but for me, I just really haven't seen it do very well. Obviously, lots of people are leveling up alts at the moment, and Alchemy also isn't the best profession for alts. It's not like it's sort of a gear crafting profession which can really benefit from people leveling alts. Alchemy hasn't really benefited too much from that, which again just adds to the fact that it's not the best at the moment. Of course, there are some old world Alchemy stuff that's pretty good. As I showed on my video, my alt does have the Vial of the Sands recipe for Alchemy and a few other kind of rarer Alchemy recipes, and this can be the best way to make gold with Alchemy, is trying to get some of these rarer recipes, particularly when you're on a high pop server when a lot of the other recipes just aren't selling or lots of the potions aren't making you profit. It's really good to try and diversify, but the Vial of the Sands takes a long time to get. You guys can look up a guide on how to farm it, but you're going to have to spend hours and hours and hours just farming to try and get this, and on some servers it doesn't even make much profits. So again, whilst Alchemy does have some benefits, it's really not in the best place right now, and I would not recommend getting it if you're looking at getting a new profession. So at number 6 we have ourselves Engineering. Usually engineering comes bottom of my profession list, so number 6 is actually quite good for engineering, at least for me. And I kind of like engineering at the moment. Obviously it doesn't have an amazing gold potential, it never does, but for what it does do, it does pretty well. And considering how bad some of the professions are right now, engineering isn't the worst of them. In particular, things such as the auto hammer, if you can get rank 3 of it. Some of the gear and weapons does also sell. And engineering is a great profession to have on your alts. You can very easily craft the Sky Golem mount once per month just by creating one of Jard's peculiar energy source every day, and after 30 days you can make the mount, and that usually sells for 20 or 30k profit. So if you just have engineering on a few alts you don't really play, but you just log on to them every day, then you can easily make quite a bit of gold per month from really not doing very much at all. Engineering also has some very slow selling sort of transmogs, some very slow selling mounts that are worth just crafting and then leaving up on the auction house, and eventually they will sell for a decent profit. So again, engineering does have a decent enough place in the professions right now, and particularly for an alt, I would recommend getting engineering on at least a couple of alts. Before we move on to number 5, I would like to thank today's sponsor, which is Skillshare. Skillshare is an online learning community with thousands of courses from some amazing creators. In the strange time where we are currently living, Skillshare is a great way for creative people to help break up their monotonous daily routine and try something new. It is great value for money at just $10 per month for a yearly subscription, and you're going to be getting 2 months free Skillshare through clicking my link down in the description. My main job is as a marketer, and I've really been enjoying the Design Great Stuff course from Draplin, providing a really interesting insight into how to build merch for a specific brand. So please remember, link in the description below. You will get 2 months free Skillshare Premium for the first 1,000 people that click it, so don't miss out. So it's really close between number 5 and number 4 on my list, but I've chosen to go for leatherworking as the 5th best profession for the end of BFA 8. Leatherworking is really pretty decent because of all the people who are leveling up alts, and lots of classes use leather and mail, so leatherworking has loads of gear to sell, and as you can see it makes a pretty decent profit, even though I've only got rank 1s on this character for most of them, but still making pretty decent profits. And with the mail gear we see something similar. So it's a really decent profession and a really easy profession to use right now. Of course, leatherworking also has the drums, which you can craft and which sell pretty well, and a few old transmogs. And yeah, it's a really great profession right now. The reason it didn't come in at number 4 because I think tailoring has slightly better potential outside of the BFA stuff. So for things such as transmog, tailoring usually sells better, at least in my opinion. So that's a slight giveaway, but at number 4 we have tailoring. Tailoring is similar to leatherworking in its gold making potential for BFA. Not much to go into, you can easily craft the gear. Tailoring is also really fantastic for getting your expulsum because it's the cheapest way. You just craft the linen braces, put them into the forge, and you get expulsum, or the scrapper, or whatever it's called nowadays, the scrapper. Tailoring also has some really great old world stuff, old transmogs, and some sort of fancy bags and some fancy cloths that you can make. All of that does sell for a pretty decent amount, even though it sells slowly. It's still worth having. And then there are also the things such as the spell threads, which you can put onto alts gear when they're leveling up. So you add all those things together and it makes tailoring a pretty decent profession. Like I say, pretty similar to leatherworking right now, so check out your servers, see what's profitable, and choose between those two if you're interested in those professions. Now, in my opinion, the top 3 professions on this list are by far and away clear of the rest in terms of the best professions right now. And at number 3, I've gone for blacksmithing. So why is blacksmithing so good? Particularly when you look at the profits of some of the gear, and it's actually similar to sort of tailoring and maybe even less than leatherworking. Now that may be the case, but blacksmithing has weapons, and that is really what sets it apart. Right now, with so many people leveling alts, one thing that's hard to get a pretty decent one of on your alt is a weapon, and lots of people are buying the uncanny weapons. And as you can see from the sale rate here, 0.19, 0.15, that's a lot more than the gear. Weapons sell twice as fast as the gear, almost. So weapons are really great, and they can make a really nice profit. And again, I've only got rank 1s of some of these, but they still sell for really, really good. So I would suggest blacksmithing, and then again, you can look at the other stuff with blacksmithing. Some of the transmog bits, the fell steel pieces sell really well. Basically, leatherworking has some really good potential for transmogs, and if you've got some of the rarer ones in particular, then that's going to be good. Don't really have them on this guy, but even some of the old stuff sells very slowly, but it sells for a good profit. But the main reason for blacksmithing right now is so you can craft those uncanny weapons, and it's just a great way to make steady gold, and blacksmithing is just great for that right now. And anyone who's kind of new to gold making, who maybe doesn't want to go for more of the complicated professions, then something like blacksmithing is a great thing to get you started, whilst also being very profitable. Okay, so at number 2, we have ourselves Enchanting. Enchanting is usually number 1 on my list of professions. It's almost always my favourite profession. It's almost always the best profession to have. But it's only made number 2 this time. Enchanting, again, has loads of different stuff from both the old world and from BFA. Different ring enchantments, different weapon enchantments, and all of that make it pretty good for BFA stuff. But then it really excels in the old world stuff, particularly things such as Tome of Illusions. Lots of people are buying these right now, and they're very profitable, even on a very big server like mine. Some of them sell for like 3,000 or 4,000 gold profit each. And if you're on a lower pop server, I've seen them sell for sort of 10,000 profit each, depending on what server you're on. But anyway, it's really easy profit. You just literally buy the materials from the auction house and you craft them and sell them. Tome of Illusions are not the only old world thing that sells really well. There's also some old world enchants, because people like to min-max their alting experience, so they will put an enchantment on their alt for some of the old world enchants, which can sell really good. Some of the Mists of Pandaria and Warlords of Draenor weapon enchants, some of the cloak enchants from Legion, some of the sort of chest enchants from Classic and from other expansions. All of these can sell really nicely and actually quite quickly. Considering they're an old world enchant, you probably wouldn't believe it, but they do sell pretty quickly. Again, I have never put an enchant on my alt, but I know lots of people who do, so it is a thing, and it is the reason why some old world enchants sell really well. Combined with the Tome of Illusions, and combined with the BFA enchanting, and combined with disenchanting, which you always have to talk about disenchanting when you're talking about enchanting, because it's just a useful feature and it's just passive gold. Instead of vendoring something, you can disenchant it, and usually it will make you more gold. So having it on a main character is great for enchanting, and yeah, it's maybe not quite as good as it has been at the start of expansions when the BFA enchants sell for loads and loads of gold, but even towards the end of the expansion it's still pretty decent. And that brings us to number 1, what I think is the best profession right now, which is Inscription. Now, the main reason Inscription is so good right now, combined with all of its other stuff that always makes Inscription one of the better professions, are the trinkets, the highborn compendiums. Now again, with so many people leveling alts with the double XP, highborn compendium trinkets sell really well. On most servers they sell for sort of 2,000 gold each, or at least 1,000 gold each. Again, even on my high populated server they sell for at least around 1,000 each, and they sell really quickly. They sell quicker than any gear. In fact, they sell even quicker than blacksmithing weapons. So these sell a lot, and they sell for a lot of gold, and it's just a great way to make gold. And it's one of the main reasons Inscription is so good right now. But it is not just about the trinkets for Inscription. They do have the offhands, the uncanny offhand, which sells for really high profits on my server, 7k each, which is kind of ridiculous. Sometimes it's a lot less than that, but anyway, they do sell for nice gold. Of course, there's the milling, so you can mill herbs and turn them into the pigments and create the inks, and you can even sell the inks on the auction house. You'd be surprised how many times people actually buy those. And then, of course, there are the tomes, the Tome of the Quiet Mind to change your talents, and the Codex of the Quiet Mind. These completely depend on your server and whether or not you have rank 3 of them in terms of how profitable they are, but really, really worth checking out. And if you're on like a medium pop server or something, then crafting the tomes, I know some people just have a monopoly of the tome market and make so much gold from these, so it's definitely worth checking out. Then there's things such as War Scrolls, again, sell really nicely and very, very quickly. And then there are the glyphs. We haven't even talked about glyphs yet, but one of the main reasons Inscription is so good is also glyphs, particularly now with people leveling alts. On my server, they're not the most profitable, but if you can get cheap sallow pigments and roseate pigments from anchorweed and from some of the Legion herbs, then you're going to be able to make some profit with these glyphs. So it kind of depends on how cheap you can get your pigments, but the glyphs can sell really nicely, particularly some of the rarer Legion glyphs if you have them. And then finally there are some of the shoulder inscriptions, which again people put on their alts, and some of these can sell really nicely. Again, depending on your server, but as you saw on my inscription video, I was selling quite a few of these for pretty crazy amounts of gold, considering how cheap and easy they are to make. So really, for inscription, it's a combination of all things, but it's particularly the fact that the trinkets are selling so well at the moment that makes inscription the best profession right now, and potentially until the end of Battle for Azeroth, in my opinion. But let me know, guys, what you think. Thanks very much for watching this video, and until next time, see ya.